Thanks, Jeff, for the reminder. Oops. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where in the world you are today. In fact, as you guys are coming in, just give me a shout out. Where in the world are you? I know, we usually have a worldwide audience, so it's always great to see where everybody is. I have a little helper with me this morning. I know some of you who've been on my live shows before have met Max or heard the story of Mr. Max. He is a puppy, obviously. We've had him, probably about a month now. But he ended up directly after we got him, he ended up with parvo and was in the hospital for about a week. So we almost lost the little guy. But he is full of himself now, and he likes to make an entrance once in a while. So today we're going to be talking about something you guys may not be familiar with, and I'm going to be totally transparent and tell you I don't know anything about this yet. That's why we're talking to the expert. We're going to talk about the California Consumer Privacy Act. When GDPR came along, everybody was like up in the air, like how does this impact us? What's going on? What do we need to do? And it's kind of the same thing now with this new Privacy Act thing. And so I wanted to bring on a special guest who knows the ropes and is going to share what this means and how it's going to impact us on our side. What businesses does it impact? Is it something we need to jump through a hoop for? That kind of stuff. So we're going to be focused on talking about that today. And if you're interested in figuring this out and making sure you're legal and staying compliant, then you're in the right place. Hey, Kathy, good morning. So we have Southern Cal. Well, our guest is from California this morning too. So I'm excited to share with you guys. So as always, we have Wyoming in the house. Hey, Robin, good to see you. And as always, when we do the shows, for those of you who've been with me on one of my shows before, we do some giveaways, and I'm going to talk about those in just a second. But if you're brand new and never been on one of my shows before, just say, hey, with the hashtag new. I'd love to know if you're brand new and never been on my show before or one of my shows. And if you are interested in winning some of the giveaways we have today, the way you win is if you hear something that is like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that, or it's just an aha moment. Type in hashtag aha, because that's how and what the aha moment was, so that we can pick a winner based off of those aha moments. So we have a couple of giveaways today. One is a webcam cover, and you just pop this on your, and no, you do not get to eat this, but it looks good, doesn't it? You pop this over your camera and it protects the spying eyes out there. We also have a ring light, and these are great because you always have you have a source of light, a great source of light, focus light for your phone. So you just slip that over your phone and it's amazing. And our special guest today happens to have an amazing book that I also was a contributor to. So that's a whole other story we won't go into right now. But we're going to give away our special guest, Mitch Jackson's book, The Ultimate Guide to Social Media. Now, there's 47 experts that have contributed to this book. And so the point of it is that this is an incredible social media book, just chock full of great knowledge. So we'll be choosing a winner for a winner for this particular book. And our special sponsor for today is easel.com. If you're interested in checking out Easel, you can go to kimgurst.com/Easel. What is Easel? Easel is a graphic design tool. It's one of my favorites. What I love about Easel is that they have amazing pre-designed templates. Whether it's a social media post or it is a live streaming background, like you see here. Yes, they have those templates already pre-designed, and all you have to do is go in and tweak them, put your brand colors on them, etc. So we're also giving away three winners 3-month trials for this amazing little tool. So again, if you have aha moments, just drop them in. Tell us what your aha moments is. Make sure you use the hashtag aha. Okay. And Hopefully this little guy will get tired and he'll take a nap soon. He is a baby. uh, all right, so let me intro our special guest today, guys. I am a huge fan of my friend Mitch Jackson for a variety of reasons, um, but I want to tell you a little bit about him. He is the 2009 Orange County Trial Lawyer of the Year and 2013 California Litigation Lawyer of the Year. He's also one of the most well-known trial lawyers on social media, which is what I'm super excited about. It's very hard to find an attorney that is knowledgeable about the online space. But he's also been profiled in a lot of best-selling marketing books and dozens of publications, the Wall Street Journal, Mashable Inc. And during the past several years, he's presented on stages like Tony Robbins, for example. He also gives great advice across the board. If you ever need especially if you're in California, if you ever need an attorney in our space, the online space, you better reach out to Mitch. He's great. He's the founder of the Global Legal Minds Mastermind. So if you're an attorney, you need to check that out. And he's written the new book that I just wanted to share with you guys before, which is The Ultimate Guide to Social Media for Business Owners, Professionals, and Entrepreneurs. So if you fall into those spaces where you're a business owner or you're in this professional space, which I'm assuming if you're here, you probably are in one of those spaces, you identify with one of those terms, then check out his book. And then a lot of you may have seen him online under the moniker, the Streaming Lawyer. He does a lot of live video. He has a great podcast. Bottom line, check him out. You're going to want to. So give a big hand to my great friend, Mitch Jackson. Hey, Mitch.
This introduction. I really appreciate it. This has been an interesting journey on social media, isn't it?
Absolutely. And like I say, it's very hard to find an attorney that is sharp on the online space. Yay. So great, right? This is so we have Marcus here. He's saying, great to see you both. Followed you both since Periscope. So I think that's maybe where we met, right, Mitch? Was on Periscope?
It is.
Oh, I think we're having a little bit of connection problem with Mitch. So we'll give him just a minute and see what's happening here. The worst part is when it comes to the California Consumer Privacy Act, well, I don't know a whole lot about it. So we're definitely gonna need Mitch on this one to talk through what this means and how it's going to impact our businesses.
Okay, are we back?
There you are. You're back. Okay.
So
yay.
We met in New York City at the very first Periscope Summit and had a great time, each of us sharing our different areas of expertise with all of these new Periscopers that flew in from around the world. Then bounced over to the next convention in San Francisco. I ended up down in Los Angeles at the new Summit Live. And, it's interesting, Kim, people would ask, why am I, a trial lawyer, interested in traveling and speaking at these events? And the truth is twofold. Number one, I love this technology. It's going to change the world. And what we've seen over the last 6 months is this technology has allowed us to connect and keep our businesses open, help our family and friends almost in real time with their COVID-19 challenges. And this has been a big instrument to keeping things moving forward. So it's one of the most important things that we've done with our firm is embrace cloud, embrace live video, and also use these tools to connect with clients from all over the world and meet people just like you when we're having all of these fun experiences. Because look, business is all about relationships and business is all about life. And I think once professionals, lawyers, and business owners figure it out, everything falls back into place and we can have some fun. And as long as we have fun within the parameters of the new laws that seem to be coming out over and over and over again, everybody stays safe, everybody stays sound, and everybody's able to run a business without worried about being fined or sued or something even worse happening.
Yeah. I think all these new rules and laws that have come into existence have been a little bit of a stumbling block from a knowledge standpoint and from an implementation standpoint. In the past, I think the only thing we really had to worry about was getting an image off of Google and, getting Getty Images coming after us, right? Now we have bigger problems and bigger concerns. So, can you explain what the California Consumer Privacy Act is? And is it new? It's new, right? I mean, and when did
It
it go into effect? Kind of tell the back end of it, the backstory.
So the law was created and written and originally was going to go into effect on January 1st, 2020. They put a hold on it and pushed it back to July 1st, 2020, and now it's in force and effect. And the big question is, what is this law and who does it affect? But before I talk about that, what we're talking about is privacy, data concerns with your data, my data, and anyone else's data when they're dealing with the company doing business in the state of California. And I think it's really important to note, Kim, and I wrote some notes down to kind of give context to why this law is rolling out and other states are rolling out similar laws. Then I'll try to break it down so everyone understands what's going on. Between January and September of 2019, so last year, there were over 7.9 billion data records exposed, and that was a 33% increase from the same time period from the year earlier. In the first quarter of 2020, the number of exposed privacy records increased 273% over the same time last year. So this is a problem that's just getting worse and worse, and something needed to be done. Some examples in 2020, Kim, I've just got 3 examples most people would hear of. The MGM Resorts reported in 2020 that 142 million personal records from former guests and people gambling at the properties are available and have been released on the dark web. Walgreens, which is where many of us go to get our pharmacy and our meds, second largest pharmacy in the United States, just had a record-breaking breach where prescription numbers, addresses, emails, the names of the users were hacked from the app that Walgreens provides its customers. The exact number's not known, but more than 10 million downloads of this app have taken place. So even when you're using a secured app by an established company, you're going to have problems. Last, if you're using Zoom, the credentials of over 500,000 Zoom users this year were taken and being sold on the dark web for 2 cents a user, which included addresses, passwords, login information, and anything else that could be extracted from that Zoom database. So there's a real problem out there, let alone put aside, social media, fake news, political ads, things that don't have any right or reason as to what the facts are, as to putting a handle on all of this to help protect the consumer. So what California did is California rolled out the California Consumer Privacy Act that we'll call the CCPP. And this Privacy Act was set up for 3 specific reasons. Number one, it was set up to allow the consumers to know and have access to personal information being collected by certain companies that are doing business in California. So the companies are doing business in California. The consumer is being sold a product or service in the state of California. And that's really the first trigger, but it's not that black and white. There are issues to determine whether or not you as a consumer or the sale of your products or services fall into that category. And we'll talk a little bit about this. Number 2, you have to be able to comply under this new law with monitoring, keeping track of, and sharing back to the consumer if the consumer asks for all of their data. You have to be able to keep track of this data. It's not okay to look the other way and say, I didn't know we were supposed to keep track of that. You now have an affirmative obligation as a business owner to keep track of all the data. Third, you are required on your website to have a prominent banner, a prominent display that talks about your requirements as a company and gives the consumer access to this kind of information. So that's why the new law was started, because of the problems we were having. These are some of the parameters, the broad brushstrokes of the law. But now let me dig in deep before we start doing Q&A, Kim, because frankly, this law probably isn't going to apply to most of the people watching today's show. We have a couple of clients where it does apply to, and we're helping them get everything situated and worked out. And I think we've been able to do that. But this law, the CCPA, it applies to for-profit businesses, which for the prior year, let me put on my glasses, realized an annual gross revenue in excess of $25 million. Okay, so step one is you're going to be a company where over the past prior year, your annual gross revenues were in insects, which is more than $25 million. Number two, if that doesn't apply to you, if you're a company who processes personal information of 50,000 or more California residents, and note that the personal information we're talking about doesn't simply include a name, an email address, or a phone number. That also includes digital information like device ID and IP numbers. So if you're collecting that type of information on 50,000 or more California residents, you're going to arguably fall underneath this new law. And the last category is if you derive 50% or more of your income from the sale of personal information. As you can imagine, some of these overlap into each other. But if you're in the data supply business, data accumulation business, and you're doing something within any of these three items, you probably fall under the CCPA. What a lot of people aren't aware of, Kim, is that your business does not need to be located in California or have employees in California in order for the CCPA to apply. So if you're manufacturing and selling surfboards out of Texas, and you're selling these boards in California to a number of people, collecting data from potential servers in a fashion that I've just described, there's a fairly good chance that you may fall under the CCPA, which does have financial penalties, both by the Attorney General and financial penalties from the general consumer. So you need to be made aware of and pay attention to these particular items. And so those are the broad brush over strokes for, I think, anybody watching.
Okay, so like you say, most maybe potentially, but I think we need to dig into that just a little bit more. Potentially, most people wouldn't fall into those three categories. That's what they're thinking. Thoughts are, well, that doesn't meet my because my business isn't in excess of 25 million. I don't have over 50% of my business based in California. Honestly, do you know? Like that would be the next question for those that are reviewing. Do you understand your buyers? Potentially, a lot of your buyers could be in California, and 50% of your revenue could be generated from California. So, we do need to be apprised of these rules. I think it's bigger than because the problem is big. This is a big, big problem. It's going to keep circling, and every state ultimately will have some sort of a law around this. So we need to get smart on this. So when it comes to this law, though, the things that I'm already seeing on my side, I'm seeing it on the backside of like in the Facebook ads platform where they're, really keying in on this law change, and potentially even with CRMs, where we, email data that we collect, or if we're buying something or somebody's buying something from us, those are data points that we're collecting data. We might not look at it from that perspective, but those are data points that we're collecting. So when have you seen any big push around the CRMs out there? I know, like I said, I've already seen it on Facebook's side, where they're really pushing the entrepreneur or the business owner, depending on which way you want to look at it, to really, get their ducks in a row.
We are seeing that, and that is what's going to continue to change. So, this particular law in California has actually been adopted by several other states, and we see it to continue being adopted by eventually a majority of states, just so it's possible to have framework built around protecting the consumer. And I think what's really important, Kim, is companies that clearly fall within these parameters that we talked about obviously have certain obligations to manage, control, make available, and return the data to the requested consumer. And I've got some tips I want to share on that. Companies that aren't yet at this point or don't think they're at this point, there's another law rolling out in November that the state legislature may actually get a hold of before the voters do, that makes this law look like the CCPA on steroids. It actually adds more requirements, things that were left out in the original bill. And we can talk about that at the end of the show. But what I'm getting at is I think most smart business owners need to understand it's important for them to keep track of the data that they're accumulating, the data that they're pulling in to run their algorithms, the data that they're asking consumers to give them so that they can push the right products up on the screen using AI to help facilitate the sale. Yeah, I think over the next few years, this is going to be a mandatory requirement. So for the smaller companies, they may as well start to get ready now, so that when laws and regulations in each state hit across each state, they will simply experience a minor speed bump as opposed to a bridge that's been washed out across the river that you're going to have a hard time, getting across. I think it's pretty obvious that what we've experienced the last 6 months really opened up everyone's eyes as to the power of products and sales being distributed online. Shows like this, right? 24/7 via Amazon or our own shopping pages. And with that comes every single small business owner, whether they know it or not, they're accumulating data, names, addresses, IP numbers, consumer trends. All of this data is being kept in some type of database. And so the second part of the law, Kim, is critically important whether you're a big company or a small company today, to keep track and manage the data that's coming in to your company. So even if you're using a third party to help do all this, it's a non-delegable duty, which means you can have other people helping you do this, but it's your job as the company, at least practicing and selling here in California, or to California consumers, you're wearing that captain's hat. Everything falls back on your shoulders, no matter how many team members you have. So it's super important that you set up a process where you're able to manage the data that's coming in. You're able to filter it somehow so that you're able to see who's on or in that data from what section of the state, maybe drop it down to a zip code, phone number, area code type of search, and be set up where you can, upon request from the consumer, return that data and stop using that data at his or her concern. It needs to be set up so that if you need to flip the switch, their data's gone, it's archived, it's deleted, it's stored, it's put on hold, whatever your arrangement is with the consumer, and that will keep you out of trouble. That is something that's going to need to do. Another aspect is companies are going to need to update their privacy notices, the notices we all have on our websites and some of us have on our social media platforms. Well, it's requiring that this data law, the right of a consumer to ask for his or her information back, you need to give notice. You need to take affirmative action and give notice to the consumer. Hey, we're collecting data to help make your buying experience a better one, to help bring you the lowest price in town. Along those lines, any data that we collect will be used just for company purposes. Now, I want to see companies start to state that in writing, because we all know that companies sell off data to third parties to open up a new income stream. Most consumers aren't okay with that. Most consumers aren't aware that that's happening, and then they're not okay when they find out it's happening. And so these disclaimers and limitations on websites will be redesigned to make sure the company is the one that's possessing full management and control over the data, so that when it's organized and requested back by the consumer, the company has the ability to do this. I should point out that while I'm a California lawyer and it's early in the morning on a Monday morning, I'm not anyone's lawyer watching this show. And if you guys have any questions about this particular Privacy Act or anything we've talked about, I encourage you to reach out to an attorney in your state, if it's other than California, and get your questions answered, because there are some fines that are associated with everything we're talking about. And the last thing I'd like to see happen is anyone be subject to any of those unnecessary fines.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that was a lot. So let's break down a couple of
Yeah,
things.
sorry about that.
No. That's great. It was all great info. And like Mitch just said, if you guys have questions, please drop them in, and we'll make sure they're answered. But a couple of things that came to mind while you were talking that I'm curious about is how difficult is for us as business owners, when obviously the collection of data happens in a variety of different ways. Like we have sales pages, or we have however we're collecting the data. Even things like, guys, one of the things Mitch talked about was IDs. If we're doing any kind of retargeting, we are collecting IDs, Facebook IDs, and then retargeting them on Facebook. So having the tools to be, I guess that's my question. And you may not know this yet, Mitch, but my question is, are the tools ready for this, so that it enables us as end users of those tools to be able to facilitate giving the contact information, the data points that we have to our customers, back to them? I mean, like, I don't even know where to start, and I bet you others might feel the same way. So what's your take on that? Do you feel like that the tools are ready for the onslaught of the privacy laws that, California started this, but every state ultimately will have them?
So I don't think the tools are ready. I believe there's 3 or 4 states that have already enacted similar laws. California was first. But the reason these tools will be ready, Kim, is when you look at the numbers. When I look at in California, if you're a company violating this particular rule, you can be hit by the Attorney General with a legal action and pay up to $2,500 per violation, $7,500 per intentional violation. So if you have 10,000 data points, different names, different addresses that might violate this particular law, and you're intentionally failing to manage it, keep track of it, or return it like you're supposed to under this law, you could be popped for $7,500 per each violation. So that is incentive in itself to make sure that the tools that we all need as small, medium-sized business owners are going to be made available to us. Because if they're not made available to us and something bad goes down because we weren't given access to the tools to make this information available to our valued customers, when we get fined, guess what's going to happen? We're going to be able to turn around to Facebook, turn around to our IP provider, turn around to that third-party supplier that's keeping track of our data, and we're going to be able to seek indemnification or reimbursement from them. So I'm pretty comfortable the companies will make these tools available. And I think that some of them probably already are. We just don't know about it because this is a play box that we've been spending a lot of time in. The other incentive for everybody to put things together, Kim, so that it works for all of us, is there's now a private cause of action. Private consumers can bring in action on their own without the state or the Attorney General getting involved. And if they feel that their rights have been violated under this particular section, so you've got a merchant that's refusing to confirm that they're going to be deleting your personal information, they confirm they're not returning it to you, they're not muting it, putting it on pause. As a consumer in California, you have the right to bring a separate action against the company. And once again, after enough of these separate actions get filed, I think it will give everyone enough incentive to set up these additional tools to allow any seller, any merchant, any provider access to click, return, and then delete. So yeah, this is something that we've seen grow. And, if we go back 12, 15 years, we never even anticipated shows like this happening.
Yeah, right.
And
exactly.
now we are. And so I think this is just something that's going to take a little bit of time. I don't know if it's good or bad, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So Edward is asking, I'd be interested to know where other countries are on this. This is really important. So I hope more than just California is on top of this. And I think that's where the conversations around the GDPR and that was a stab at this, right? Like to try to control it from outside of the US. And I've seen some big, lawsuits around the GDPR, but I still see so many people that are not compliant with even that. And going back to the fact that I feel like for the average entrepreneur, we're woefully unprepared for this. The tools don't help us either. Most tools are not set up to help us display all the data points that we're collecting on people and allow them to choose what they want us to have and not have, that. So how do we manage that? Is one of those things. The only tool that I know, and it has just a piece of it, is ActiveCampaign does allow, and it's a really fascinating platform in the concept of the Facebook ID. It if somebody asks to be removed from your list, it will also dynamically update the Facebook ID in the audiences inside of your Facebook ad account. So that means if somebody says, hey, I want to be removed from your list, then ActiveCampaign will also magically do something on the backside, and it'll take those people, those IDs that match up to that email address out of the audience inside of our ad account, and therefore our ads will not be served up to those people. That is a very high-end way of managing it. Right now, most tools don't have those capabilities, so it puts that onus back on us, and it's hard, right? I mean, I don't know how, but to Mitch's point, I think the tools will catch up. The tool that gets there fastest, whoa. I'm just saying, they're going to have a windfall of business, don't you think?
Oh, exactly. It's are you CCPA compliant? Click here, and we'll make sure that happens. So in the litigation world, Kim, this is the type of stuff that we've been using for e-discovery for literally a decade and a half. And everything in the database that needs to be analyzed and scraped and reviewed and weighed and either returned to a client or exchanged through the discovery process to opposing counsel, we're able to do everything I just talked about. This is technology that's already available, for big law and big litigation, but not every small business owner is going to be able to afford or have access to this same type of technology. And as with anything else, and I don't know about you, but I've been around long enough where what I see is technology originally costing this much. And over a 4 or 5 year period, it drops down to something that most consumers can afford. It just takes time. In this case, Kim, a couple of little pro tips I think that everyone needs to pay attention to is if you research the California Consumer Privacy Act, you look at those bullet points we were talking about. You're grossing, not netting, but grossing 25 million or more. Doing business in California, all the other items we talked about. There's still some other interesting aspects to this law. Number one, you've got a company, you're providing all of the protocols, all of the maintenance, all the management. All of a sudden, you get an email through your website. You've got your website set up. If you think we're using your data, complete this form so that we can stop using it and mail you back a copy of your data. That's basically one of the components of this war. What's to keep Kim from going to a website that involves me and putting in my name and some of my parameters to get access to my personal information? So they think that they're returning my information to me, but they're returning it to Kim. And this is going to be, I think, a big legal challenge in this area. So as a company, you want to have protocols and guidelines set up so that when a customer makes a request, that you've checked off your box that the person you're responding to is actually the person who's entitled to this personal information. The last thing you want to do is take this information and have it go sidewise to a criminal and have it end up being on the dark web. So there's some other issues involved in this anytime you're distributing information. And then lastly, Kim, doing business in California. How do you know if you're in New Jersey, New York, London, Paris, selling products and services, or you're consulting, you're creating Facebook ads that are being pushed to Californians in San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco? If you're out of state doing all of those things, are you doing business in the state of California? Does California have jurisdiction over you to hit you with the California Consumer Privacy Act? And we have out here what's called a long arm statute. And it's basically a set of rules that are based on equity and fact. For example, if you're intentionally selling surfboards to people in California and you're receiving a profit from the sale of those surfboards and you're located in Texas, New York, it's probably deemed that you are doing business with California and you fall under this particular act. If you are entering into contracts with people in California for whatever type of business purpose, you're accumulating information like we talked about. Well, the fact that you entered into a contract in California may be determinative that you're doing business in the state of California, but not always. And so that's kind of maybe there's a presumption that you're doing business, but we need to look at the facts in a lot more detail. Where your company's located isn't always the distinguishing factor if you're doing business in California. Remember, if you're not doing business in California and you're not selling your products and services to businesses in California, then this particular California Consumer Privacy Act doesn't apply to you. So that really is step one in evaluating what do we need to do, what changes do we need to make in how we're set up. And as we grow, as we expand our products and services to other states, including California, what are the next 4 or 5 things we need to do to stay safe? So it's an ongoing process.
And, for those that are probably watching, most are, I would imagine, have global businesses. If they have an online business, then anybody, anywhere can purchase from you, more than likely. I mean, if you've got a website up, you don't put restrictions. If somebody comes and says, hey, I want that product or service, you don't say, well, hey, I don't, you just because you're in California, I can't sell to you. That's not how the majority of us operate. I love that question. Rhonda's asking, where can we find the language we need to add to our privacy policies to be compliant with this law? And you talked about it, and I think there's still a lot of people that potentially don't even have privacy policies. So I'd like to tell you guys, please, if you do not have privacy policies, get one, and add the language around the CCPA to it. So if do you have a place where you could just go copy great language somewhere that you could recommend to the audience?
There is, Kim, and what I'm going to do just for you, okay, just because I like you guys so much, is I've got pages and pages of information here that's really, really good, okay? I just need to put it together. And what I'll do this week is I'll put together a blog post that lists everything I've talked about in an easy to read and understand format, much easier than what I've got all over my desk, that your viewers can go to. And then what I'll do is include a couple of links. If you're interested in getting your California Consumer Privacy Act reviewed or a template or get started, click here, and I'll get them going to some really reputable third-party resources, not to me, but
Yeah.
to get everybody going in the right direction. And then also, I want to point out that we've got the California Privacy Rights Act, which is, like I mentioned, set up to come out later this year, and it's described as being the CCPA on steroids. It's going to be on our ballot in November, as if there's not enough on the ballot in November. But the state legislature may take it up and create a new law like they did with the CCPA. And I've got an updated link that keeps everyone up to speed on the status of that law. So I would suggest not waiting until that law comes out, but doing what you need to do. Maybe look through my blog post. I'll commit to you, Kim and Rhonda. I'll get this thing up by Wednesday at the latest at streaming.lawyer. And keep it simple. Include the links that I would want my family members, my clients to look at. And I think anyone looking at it and clicking through and then using the forms that they'll be taken to, that should get them started to help avoid these mandatory fines. But I think it also helps set them up as leaders in their industry, because this shows that they, number one, comply with local and state laws. Number two, they care about the consumer's data. I shared at the top of the show literally dozens and dozens of huge companies. You guys would know the names of these companies. Millions and millions of pieces of data since 2020 have gone sideways to the dark web. And this type of service will allow, let's just say, maximize the chances of that not happening. So I think there is some rationale behind the law. That's not always the case when someone wants to make a new law. I'm the first, after trying cases for 34 years, I'm the first to admit it. But I think in this particular law, the internet's been the Wild West for a long time. And I think what's happening is legislatures are trying to clean things up a little bit and keep everybody's private information private. Because when somebody gets a hold of your private information, that gives them access to your bank accounts, that gives them access to your mortgage accounts, that gives them access to your investment accounts, and you might wake up some morning and there's nothing there for you. So this is all pretty important stuff that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, not only from our business perspective, but also as individuals, right? Where our data points are being collected all the time. There is no such thing as privacy anymore. And to your point, I think, Mitch, it is a bit scary. The internet has been for 30 years. I've been online for pretty much 30 years. Crazy. It sounds ridiculous when I say it. It doesn't seem like it's been 30 years. It has been a ride, let me tell you. But I think you're right. I think that the states and our country as a whole is starting to wake up and say, okay, how can we protect us? We're even though we're business owners and we're collecting data on others, we're also being collected on. Data is the currency these days. That's why Facebook is selling billions of dollars of ad spend, and Google, same thing. I mean, data is the currency, and it's being traded. Honestly, very, in my opinion, unethically in a lot of ways, but that's a whole other story. And there's even though there's going to be laws around this, exactly what Mitch talked about, there's always a back end. Like, how do we protect against that? Like, if somebody is trying to get the data and we assume that it's going to be their data, the point is that there's unethical people out there all the time. We just have to do the right things for our consumers as much as we can, make sure that we're compliant to the degree that we can be knowledgeable about what we can be knowledgeable about, because ignorance is not an excuse. So I want to dig into this just a real quick while we're picking our winners. You talked about this new proposed California Privacy Acts thing that's coming up, and I think there's a big gap between what's there now and potentially what's coming. So the new bill or law or whatever you want to call it that is on steroids. Can you give us any insight into like what's going to be added to this that's going to make it might bring it more down to the average business owner's level?
I can, and all it's doing is giving the original CCPA more teeth to dive a little bit deeper into what specific pieces of data are protected and what are the requirements of the companies, both small and large, with specifically protecting, managing, and then upon request, returning the data. As with any bill, the first bill was more of a broad general overstroke, and now this bill is cleaning up some of the loose ends. So there is a link that I'll include in the post for you on Wednesday, where if someone clicks on that link, it will take them to the specific details of the California Privacy Rights Act, which is a little different than the CCPA. And probably should leave it at that. It's interesting that this is an opportunity, Kim, for business owners to stop looking the other way and start showing their leadership skills by being affirmative and embracing the laws that they're supposed to embrace. Bring them into the company, make sure that everybody on their team understands what happens. And taking a step back, using the technology that we use, it's not that complicated to, when somebody fills out a form, when somebody's at your website and behind the scenes, you're scraping certain information pursuant to the law, all of that data needs to go into some type of database, okay? And so that's already happening. Now it's just a matter of being able to learn how to filter that database, have access to it when you need it, and get your team on board so that, and here's where the problems are going to happen. 6 months later, a disgruntled customer who didn't get their money back after returning a product decides, hey, I've made a request through the website to get all of my data that you've accumulated over the last 6 months. I want it all sent back to me. I want it deleted from your side of the screen, and I want to move forward with my life. You're no longer my vendor. It would be great if the company set up with a response, absolutely, that's already been done, our pleasure. Here is your digital file, your zip file with everything that you've asked for. It was a pleasure doing business with you. We're sorry you had a bad experience. Please keep us in mind if we can ever circle back again and to rebuild the relationship. That will keep everybody out of trouble. What's going to happen, and in the real world, is that same request is going to be made and someone's going to say, well, that's our data. It's not your data. Why should we give that back to you? Or I don't know how to get a hold of that data. Let me put you into this 35-minute phone tree and get you to the right person, which when you get to that right person, it's the wrong person and you're back in the phone tree for another hour, right? And so when companies aren't set up to properly manage this situation, they're going to upset consumers. When consumers get upset, that's when they reach out to lawyers. That's when they reach out to local state agencies for help. And that's where things start to go south. So this is as much a general, let's get our act together from a business management standpoint, as it is, hey, there's some new laws coming out. Oftentimes, Kim, when we see new laws roll out, that's not the problem. The problem is the consumer, the individual, or the company ignoring the laws or misinterpreting the laws or putting them into force and effect, but doing it the wrong way. So I'm really looking at human nature, the human side of what happens over the next 12 months, because I think people that come into this situation with the right mindset are the ones that are going to have little, if any, problems. And I see some friends and clients and some competition out there, probably for both of us, who really could care less about keeping track of data, could care less about a consumer asking for it back. And if that particular person or company is in California, they're probably going to be hearing from the Attorney General, and they're probably going to be hearing from private citizens in this new Citizen Litigation Act. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. And honestly, as with all new things, there are always some that are looking for opportunities, to capitalize on something that is, a lot of us aren't, we don't stay on top of things sometimes. There's so much out there. And if we think it doesn't apply to us, well, we just don't take care of it. And so don't do that is my point, because there are people who are absolutely looking at this as an opportunity. They're like, oh, wow, business owners are not aware of this. I can go sue them for thousands of dollars and I'm going to win. And they're right. They're absolutely right. Because if you're not prepared and you're not, like I said before, I've said it several times, ignorance of the law is not a defense. They will get us. So being smart is just, like I say, smart. So ring light winner is Robin Carter. So Robin, if you will go to the Facebook page, it looks like you're on Facebook, I think. And we're going to pull it up on the screen. Just click that send message and type in your mailing address. We will get this out to you ASAP. And the ring light winner is, the book winner. Oh, I thought the book winner is Edward. Hey, Edward. So you're gonna get the Mitch's book. If you'll send us your email address. That's all. I think we need. No, we need your mailing address. My bad. We will need your mailing address to send the book to you. And then the webcam cover winner is Maria Red Fields. So Maria, we will also need your mailing address. So if you can just click that send message and send us a mailing address, that would be great. And then the easel winners, guys, a little bit less information. Here we are collecting data points on everybody again, right? But if you'll send the message and just send us your email address, that's all we need to be able to set up the easel.com accounts. You'll get 3 months to be able to try this out. So that is Judine, Shamarie, what a beautiful name, Marcus, all three of you guys, if you'll send us your email address, we will get the... we'll get you set up with an account with Easel. You're going to love it. And reminder, when Mitch posts this blog, sign up for our bot and we will send you a notification later this week. So if you go to kimgarst.com/live, guys, you'll just get a reminder and we'll send out the link to Mitch's blog so you guys can stay on top of it. And this is a picture of...
Can you see this?
I can. A little bit of a glare. This is your...
There we go. So AJ's 25 and Garrett's 20, and I'm never down here in this office, and it's just amazing how fast time flies. It's sitting in my face during this whole interview, so I had to share this with you.
Our kids grow up way too fast. I see people talk with people all the time that have littles. Those of us who our littles are all grown up and saving China. That's just a quote on, not literally. So Carter Robinson, I thought I better clarify that.
No, you don't. It's funny how fast things go by. And she's a first-year lawyer now up in big law in Century City, and Garrett's a third year at USC. So we're going to miss having them go back up. They go back up next week. Hey, Kim, I was just going to say, with respect to the book, if someone's interested in a traditional book, we can mail that out. Our treat, it is available in Kindle and Audible, so we can always, with an email address, send a copy out that way. So,
And
Just let
where
us
can
know, and then I'll get the link to the blog post that we put together by Wednesday together and send it over your way, and you guys can do whatever you want with it.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we'll definitely spread it around, sprinkle it out into the world because people need to know this. So, if people want to connect with you, where's the best place? Is it streaming.lawyer or what's the best
It
location for
is.
everybody to connect? Okay.
Yeah, we set up the website streaming.lawyer to do these types of things and social and live video, more traditional lawyer stuff. Our 34-year-old firm, if you go over to jacksonandwilson.com, that's where you find our catastrophic injury and wrongful death case. But I like to dance over at streaming.lawyer. It's fun, it's enjoyable. I get to meet people just like Kim and all of you. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing on social media, I'm pretty easy to find, and I'm always here for you.
Awesome. And he's an amazing person. He's helped me out so many times in so many situations and just a really, really great guy. So you guys should definitely connect with him. Send him a tweet, send him a Facebook. He'll respond. It usually up pretty early as well because it's early on his side of the US. So he's already up and dancing. All right. Well, thank you,
That'd
Mitch.
be my
Appreciate you.
run.
I would like to thank everybody else that's here watching live and on the replay as well. And take care of yourselves, stay safe, and God bless.
Thank you. Bye bye.